So, where are all the divine beasts in Tears of the Kingdom? Like, what happened, right? Where are these giant robotic monstrosities that are the size of cities that could have helped deal with all the anomalies in Tears of the Kingdom that we just regained control of in Breath of the Wild? Where did these go? I'm sure I'm not the only one asking this, and I know I'm not, because I've seen so many different theories on the internet of what could have happened to them, about where they're at, about why they're not here. But I'm going to tell you the answer. I'm going to tell you what I think. And I'm sorry, I don't think it's the answer you're going to want to hear. Maybe it is. I don't know. You're your own person. But if you think this is interesting at all, consider subscribing, or don't. Do whatever you want. Just be happy. Either way, let's get into it. Let's get it out of the way. What do I think? I think that the divine beasts are not in Tears of the Kingdom on purpose. There's a good reason for that. There's a good reason they're not really directly mentioned in any sort of significant way. They're referenced by like the helmets you could get after you do some of the dungeons and stuff, but not in any sort of physical form or, you know, thing that people want to see. People want to see remnants. They're not in here for a good reason. That reason is because the divine beasts and the Sheikah technology and the guardians and the master cycle, all of that is representative and the identity of Breath of the Wild. It's at this point the only thing really giving that game its own identity, something to define itself as its own game within the Zelda series. Because Tears of the Kingdom took everything else from Breath of the Wild and one-upped it and did even more with it. It took the dungeons and made bigger and better ones. You know, it had better, more interesting boss fights. They share the same world map, but Tears of the Kingdom said, that's cool and everything. We're going to go ahead and, you know, add a whole sky area and a whole depths area, effectively adding 2 other Hyrules on top of Hyrule, well, on top of it and below. If the divine beasts and the guardians appeared in Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild would lose out significantly on anything that made it unique. Now, you can argue that maybe the Sheikah technology isn't the most defining characteristic of Breath of the Wild. Right now, it's one of the only things it has left. I think that initial sense of creative exploration, that's a huge part of it, and I think that's really important. But I do think if you were going to point to anything else and say that this is the most defining, you know, part, or something that you're going to look back on and think of when you think of Breath of the Wild, you're gonna think of the divine beasts and the guardians and the master cycle and all of that Sheikah technology. It's one of the first Zelda games that's really leaned heavily into that idea of like, no, these cultures and these people can really have a, you know, a really strong technological side to them. Now, here's the thing. I understand that these games are sequels. You know, Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and we desperately want some sort of connective tissue relating these two. And if the entirety of everything else isn't enough for you, I understand the desire for these giant robots to be here too. It doesn't make a lot of sense that they're not here in a lore sense, but my hot take is that we don't have to explain everything away in the game for lore. We don't have to do that. I appreciate, and I think it's really interesting, a lot of the theories people have come up to try to do that. Some people are saying, oh, they tore them apart because, you know, they're giant mechanized war tanks that oppressed them for over 100 years, and, you know, they reasonably would want those gone, you know, because they might fall into the wrong hands again. I like that theory. You know, I think it'd be interesting if they had in-game like some sort of like junkyard, maybe where they took them all apart and dismantled them, and there's just this giant monstrous mountain of robot tech that they've got shoved in a corner. That'd be cool. It'd be interesting, but I don't think they have to do that. You know, they could obviously explain it away with like some random NPCs, like a few lines of dialogue, and they might do something in the future with them. There might be like some DLC where they say, you know, they're actually over here, or I've heard some people say they might be underground somewhere or something. But I don't think you have to do that. It doesn't have to be so explained with lore, especially in the Legend of Zelda series. This series is so well known for having one of the most bizarre, complicated timelines. That's the most afterthought fact of anything in the entire series. The whole timeline was an afterthought. They were never meant to really be, in my opinion, this level of interconnected that people really want them to be. People want this level of like Lord of the Rings Tolkien style lore for The Legend of Zelda, and it's just not that. There's not 400 years of detailed histories and wars. There's not languages for all the different peoples and tribes of Hyrule. It's just a different retelling of the same story every time. And that's fine. It's a great game, and we don't need to be reaching for all these different explanations for everything. There's a real world explanation for why the Divine Beasts aren't in Tears of the Kingdom, and it's because it's the only thing that defines Breath of the Wild. And I'm not saying the desire, the want to like have that explanation is bad, and I don't think if they gave an explanation of the game, I don't think that would be bad. My whole point of making this video was just to tell you why they're not here, because I've seen a lot of people, they're asking, and I've seen other videos, people saying, why aren't they here? And they'll give this like a bunch of wild theories, you know, that have like maybe some basis, but it's really hard to explain away the giant fucking robot bird that was here for, you know, 10,000 years just being gone. It's a little hard to just kind of wave your hand at that away without just accepting that it's for game purposes. So that's it. That's all. Nothing too crazy. That's my hot take. Take it or leave it. Let me know if you agree down in the comments. Tell me, you know, if you disagree, tell me how I'm a disgusting lore goblin down in the comments or something. I don't know. Tell me your theory about how, you know, they're actually on vacation on another island, you know, the little egg island maybe, you know. I don't know. Tell me your own crackpot theory. I'd love to hear it. Anyways, thanks again for watching. You know, if you like this and you made it this far, I appreciate you. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Later.